Hey, Skylar here for the Mint Change You Can Wear. Today we're going to be looking at my new improved How to Make Coin Rings Out of Large Dollars video. We're going to be showing you how to make coin rings out of large silver dollars like Morgan dollars and Peace dollars. You can also use Ike dollars too if you wanted to, so you can go non-silver that way, get some practice in. That's a good way to do it. There's just a couple tips and tricks that didn't make it into my old video I want to get into this new video, and I also want to condense it a tiny bit because the other video is a bit long. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's what we're going to be making today. This is a coin ring made out of a Morgan dollar, one of these guys. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, where the heck am I going to get a 6-ton press? No, you're not thinking that, but you're going to think that later. I know who you guys are. I read the comment section. You're thinking to yourself, I don't really want to make one, but I would like to buy one. Do you sell them? Yeah, I do. I sell them at changeyoucanwear.net. And there you can see all my coin rings for sale. But for those of you who want to get the 6-ton press, let's get going. Let's get started. So the very first step in making a Morgan dollar coin ring is we got to get a hole inside of our coin. There are several ways that we could do that. The first one people usually do when they first start making coin rings is the Harbor Freight punch and die set. I have a video on how to do that, making a circle, getting it centered, putting it in the die. If you want to do it a whole lot easier, you can talk to Skip King. I'll put a link for him below. He makes these cards that you can put coins in and they center them inside of the Harbor Freight punch and die set. They work awesome. He also makes these cards that'll work in the Pepe Tools disc cutter. And the third method, jasonsworks.etsy.com. I'll put a link in my description box below also. Makes this self-centering punch. Perfectly centers coins. They go in, they go out. So there's the tools you're going to need to punch your coin. I have tons of videos on how to do that. Now the question comes to what size hole should we punch? That's a good question. A lot of people use different size holes. For me personally, I like to use a 5/8 hole in most of my coin rings. When they get larger, over a size 16, I go to a size 3/4. I'll make a video on how to make larger sizes in Morgan dollars coming up here soon. Some people like to use 1/2-inch holes. Some people even like to use a 7/16 inch hole. And that's totally a personal preference thing. For me, 5/8 fits comfortably, so that's what I usually go with most of the time. So now that we have our coin punch, we're going to start by annealing this coin and starting the folding process. So the annealing process starts with a nice fire-resistant surface that you're going to be doing on. You can use, this is a fire panel that I use here. You can use a fire brick. You can even use a paving stone, whatever works for you. And I'm just going to heat it up with a propane torch. I use a torch like this, standard propane torch. And we'll start heating it up. Now you're going to want to make sure that you're not going to heat it up too much. If you heat it up too much, you can have problems with the silver. So they'll start bubbling up or whatever. So. We just wanted to get a Morgan dollar up to about a dull red, maybe that. It helps sometimes if you have the lights off in your shop so you can see what's going on a little easier. You can see it's starting to change colors a little bit. Alright, we are about there now. Go ahead and grab it and quench it in some water. So I know at this very moment, many of you guys are cringing right now watching me dump this in water saying that I'm annealing it. Because so many people thought that I was actually wrong by annealing it this way, I figured I would look it up on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is always right, right? They're always right. Sure, yeah, always right. So let's see what it says. Copper, silver, and brass can be cooled slowly in air or quickly by quenching in water, unlike ferrous metals such as steel, which would be cooled slowly to anneal. In this fashion, the metal is softened and prepared for further work, such as shaping, stamping, or forming. Now we're ready to start doing the folding process. So when we start to fold, we're going to be folding this coin and forging it into a die. And there's a couple options you have with dies also. I have videos on these as well. This is Jason's Works. He's the one who makes those punches as well. He makes a really awesome set of dies that work on all kinds of coins. This one's made for starting off Morgan dollars on one side and silver eagles on the other side. They're a little bit bigger. And this thing works great. It's about a 17-degree pitch, something like that. And I've had a lot of good comments from people about these dies. I use a 20-degree pitch, which is just, it's so slightly different. It doesn't hardly make a difference. But this is one I had made in a machine shop. But it's a little more crude, obviously. Jason's, they're made out of higher quality steel, and they're polished, very highly polished, which makes a huge difference. This one was made out of a lower quality steel. It's a tool steel still. And it's not nearly as highly polished as his are. But we're going to use some Pepe lube today to keep that coin sliding down well and not getting caught up. So now we're going to go ahead and take our coin, tail side facing out, and I'm going to put some Pepe lube on it just to make it slide down the die a little better. Just make sure you put it on the outside rim. Coat it real well. I'll stick it in this die, make it nice and even, and go ahead and put it in our press. So the press I use is this 6-ton A-frame press. I got it at Harbor Freight. This is a 15/16 inch steel ball bearing in there. And that's the ball bearing I'm going to use to start this process with a 5/8 inch hole. And here we go. If it starts to get cockeyed, make sure you stop it, readjust it, and then continue. So that was 10 presses now. This is what it looks like after the first annealing and then the first pressing. It gets down about that far. So now what we're going to do is re-anneal it, and then we'll continue with the forging process. Now I'm going to use this die here. This is the die I start off $half with. I want to be sure to re-lube this coin up right along the rim where it's going to be touching the die so it goes down a lot easier. So now I have my second size down die with the 15/16 ball in there, and I'm going to go ahead and press it down until I bottom it out against the sides of that die. Always being really careful to make sure that it stays nice and even on the way down. Alright, we're there. And you can see inside there, the edge of it's actually touching the steel die. Now the next step is to bevel these edges with a file, sand them so that way we're not going to get any cracks in here when we go to the next step, and re-anneal. So what I like to use is a half round file. It's round on top and flat on the bottom, and then that way you can get the outside with the flat and then get the inside with this rounded edge. And what I'm looking to do is get a nice rounded edge here, nice evenly round all the way around. So here it is after filing and just before we sand. You can see nice and rounded and ready to be sanded. And we're going to take our sandpaper. We can use anything from 120 grit to, 400 grit. It really depends on you and how much material you want to take off and how smooth you really want to get it. I know it's super awesome to watch somebody sand. So that's what it's going to look like after sanding it with a 220 grit. And for me, that's perfect. And look how nicely rounded it is. That's exactly what you want to do. You don't want to leave any sharp edges hanging out. They just look ugly. They don't look good at all. Now we're going to re-anneal it. Now that we're done making the cone shape with the pressing with the ball bearing, we're going to be going to the stretcher. In order to not get a wobble in your ring or have it canted or tilted or something like that, I want to get this all the way pushed up against the mandrel. And in order to do that, we have to stretch the bottom out. And that won't get us all the way there, but it's going to get us closer. Then we'll do something else after that. Alright, check it out. So now we have it on this large mandrel. Here's a regular size mandrel. This is one of the bigger mandrels here. What I'm looking to do is make sure that thing is totally closed up against that mandrel. That's my one big thing. I want to make darn sure this thing's going to be even when it goes down in the die when we're sizing. We're going to be hammering it down the mandrel with this, a teardrop mallet from Harbor Freight. On the Harbor Freight teardrop mallet, really be careful with the rule number 1. I know what they're thinking. Do not strike using surface other than face. But I did think I had to bring that up because if you've been in Harbor Freight, you've seen the people who shop there. Not trying to make any judgments now, but, just saying. Just be sure to work around evenly. Alright, here it is. It only took a few seconds to get it down that far. It wasn't a whole lot to go, but it's closed up around the mandrel now, and that is key, I'm telling you. Now what we need to do is re-anneal it before we size, and it is vitally important. Another reason to stop a tilted ring, to anneal right before you size. Okay, here we are back at the press again. I've got this thing annealed, it's got the Pepe lube all around the rim of it, and it's going back in the die. Same die we were using earlier. and I'm using a little round piece of metal to shove it down. Just make sure everything goes on there nice and even. You want to press down right in the center of that thing and make sure it's centered as well. Okay, here we go. Going for a size 12. Alright, that is all the way down inside of this die. And this is what we come up with. It needs to be squished down on this bottom side now. What I'm going to do now is put some Pepe lube on this bottom cut edge now, and I'm going to press it down in the die that way. Put it back in. Top back on nice and even. So right out of the die now, it's sitting at just under 13. We're going to need to file that sharp coin edge on the inside so that we can get rid of the sharp edge in there so it's comfortable to wear. And that's going to bring it down to probably almost a 13 3/4, 13 1/2, something like that. And we're going to have to reduce it down. Like I said, we're going for the smallest size that I usually like to do for this traditional method, and that'll be about a 12. But what I first want to do is file that sharp edge in there. It is really not comfortable to wear like this. Now you can see that the inside has been filed down and rounded out. And it looks a little rough right now because I need to sand it as well, so I'm going to sand it now. And the way I do that is just take my sandpaper, stick it down in there like that with my thumb, and wrap it around. And then also be sure to get that like this too, so that way you get a nice rounded comfort edge inside of there. What I normally would use to size this down is this 20-degree die that I have. You'll see in my specifics in my punches and die video. But lately I've been using a die that's just in between me. But this is the same 20-degree pitch inside of this die, but it's just a little bit bigger opening. This is what I'm going to use to squeeze it down a tiny bit more. About like that. But then I'll flip it around. Do the same thing on this side, but I have to lube it with some Pepe lube first. Alright, that's about it. Make sure during this process that you're always checking it to see the ring, the band of the ring is even. If you get too far reduced on one side and not the other, that's a good way of getting a tilted ring as well. And it's about a size a little under a 13. Well, after I got done sanding it, it was almost a 14. So here's the die I like to use for the very final stop on a Morgan dollar where I'm going down to a size 12. It's one of Jason's Works 25-degree angle die. So it's got a shallower angle in here, and that'll cause the coin to curve more aggressively. And it gets down to a smaller size a whole lot quicker. And I usually use this thing when I get within about a size of the target size. So say you were wanting to go from a 14 to a 13, but you wanted a bit more of a curve, this is the die I would use to do that. Now what I'm going to do is put this into this die and get that final reduction. And just check it often too. You don't want to go too far. Okay, that was perfect. Look at right down to the 12 like I was wanting. Now I'm going to make the other side match. And cut side's going to go down this time. And try to match exactly what we did the last time. Alright. Okay, there it is. This is a size 12 Morgan dollar. Now if you want to make these a larger size, you would just reduce enough to get your target size on your coin edge side, and then make the other side match. It usually comes off the mandrel about a size 18, and what you want to do to make that ring even on both sides is reduce it down 3 sizes. So 3 sizes down will be 17, 16, 15, and it would be a pretty much straight-sided ring then. And then obviously if you want to go down to a 14 1/2, reduce it down a half size, both sides, and continue down that way, making sure it's even as you go down. And what I'll do is I'll cover how to make larger sizes in Morgans in another video, because I make them up to a size 18. And also we'll go down to smaller sizes with the Swedish Wrap video. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching.